Hey there, folks. Today on the Houdini for MoGraph series, we're going to be diving into our first simulation. We're going to start with particles since they're the simplest setup, but a lot of the principles will eventually carry over, so let's get into it. Start by creating a sphere, and I'll double the size and turn the frequency up a bit. Now make a point pop, and I'll drop an anti-aliased node. Follow that by an absolute node, and then a fit, and export that to color. And then promote the noise parameters. I'll promote the source min and max to be able to clamp our values. And this noise is going to tell our simulation where to emit particles. So I'm going to mess around and get something that I like in these noise settings here. All right, I'm going to add some animation to the offset just a little bit. So $F times, let's say 0.02. And then I'm just going to clamp it down a bit and make an attribute blur afterwards and set it to CD just to smooth things out. And I'm going to go ahead and go back and just name that to color. All right, so make another point pop, and I'm going to name this one Vel because we're going to be setting up the velocity here. Again, an anti-alias noise. Promote all the parameters. And then I'll make a parameter node, set the type to 3 floats vector, and I'm going to name it dir. We're going to be using this one to set the general direction for our particles to emit in. Add these together and wire them out to the velocity. Now, if you turn on display point trails here, you can adjust the settings around, and you're going to see we have a little bit of motion once you add in our expression on the offset. Cool, and I want the particles to go upwards, so I'll use this dir y and give that a constant, let's say 6 or something. All right, it's time for our actual simulation. Most simulations are done in what's called a Dopp network for dynamic operators. Particles are done this way as well, but SideFX actually built a preset just for particles. So if you type popnet, it creates this Dopp net, which if you dive inside, it already has a base setup for us. So the source here is the only thing that you're really going to be adjusting usually, and underneath it is where we're going to be putting forces to control the particles. If you hit play, you'll see that we've already got some. All right, so let's just try to get these under control. First, we want it to only emit from our CD attribute. So here in the pop source, under the sources tab, there's this field for emission attribute. And if you type CD here and go back and hit play, and you can see we've got that going. So I want these to twist upwards. So I'm going to use a pop axis force node. If you drop that in here and go back to frame 1, you have to set the bounds of this force. So I'm going to crank up the radius and really push up the height since I don't want that to end at any point. Now, if you hit play, you can see that we've got some twisting action. It flings everything kind of outwards, which is cool. It looks like a galaxy, but it's not what we want for now. So in this speed tab, we have a few forces that we can adjust. This orbit one gives us that twisting motion that we got. This suction one will pull it in towards the center or push it away with a negative value. So we're going to bring that up to counter the natural push out. You can see that too much and everything just kind of gets sucked into the center. So you have to find that nice middle ground. So, okay, now I want it to flow upwards. So this lift speed here will do just that. All right, I like it, but everything's kind of even, and I want to make it feel a little more natural. So I'm going to use a pop wind node, and in this noise tab, I'm going to raise the amplitude up a bit. It's a little wild, kind of going everywhere. And so I kind of want to smooth out the noise. So I'm going to bring up this swirl scale a good amount. Turn down the roughness. And basically just kind of play around with values that you like. I'm really just trying to get a nice natural look, something that doesn't feel like it's all uniformly going up at the same time. All right, and I'm pretty happy with this. And so there's our simulation. The last thing that I'm going to do is give these points a p-scale value just so it's set up to render. So I'm going to point vop named p-scale. And you can see our sim gives us all these new attributes. What we're going to use is the particle's age so that they scale down over time the older they get. So fit our age here and let's do 2 to 4 and then make a ramp to give it some ease. And I'm just going to wire that out to the CD so we can visualize it in the viewport. And then bind export that to p-scale. Eventually you might want to drop a multiply node afterwards, just something that you can add like a max p-scale. That way you can control the size without having to dive in and just change the maximum value in your fit. And you can see that we've got that going. Now, the last thing that I want to do is drop a blast node and set it to points and then type at p-scale equals 0. That way we're not storing all this data that we don't need for particles that basically don't exist. And there you have it. That's our intro to particles. There's tons of other forces that you can use to control the particles. You can even make your own. So take the time to explore these different nodes. You'll find them on SideFX' website. And also note that when you actually want to render, you're going to want a lot more particles than this. Potentially not, depending on the look you're going for, but a lot of the time, the best way to do it is more particles, smaller size. And you can always go back into the PopNet here, use this constant birth rate slider, and that's how you'll change the amount. Have fun with this, do a bunch of experiments because particles are just a good time. You can do a lot of cool stuff. Hope you enjoyed this. Grab the project files on the site, and until next time.